Good morning, Theo.
There we go.
How you feeling?
Man, I'm good, bro. How you doing?
Overall, good. Just trying to think clearly with how to show up in all these different spaces in a way that will collectively like move things forward in the right light and way
Okay,
because
okay.
so much reactionary response is happening.
With regards to the riots, march, all that, or anything else in particular?
More so, everything else, everything. Because I can see the need for riots. I can see the need for like showing the voice.
Yeah.
It's one side of the coin that we need to make sure we're also showing the other side of the community coming together. It's like it's a war that we're in right now, and to just fight it from one side doesn't make sense when we don't control media, not one bit, not one bit.
I mean, we control the level of personal media in terms of just our own social site, but not even really, because that shit seems like it's being taken down as well. So you're right. We don't control it.
Exactly. So it's like, how do we show up as a community to show the different sides of the the power in which we have together. So it's
Yeah.
like I'm just seeing what's coming up to see where to show up to help move the right things forward.
Um, I think part of it really is. Uh, I don't think you need to think about what to move forward. I think you need to figure out what resonates with you and just go with that. Because I think too many people find they bind themselves with information, and if you show up at a rally and it's not for you, you show up and you leave. You know what I mean? If you show up at a space and it doesn't feel comfortable, you show up and you leave. You know, and I think the difficulty is we make no moves in trying to make the right moves.
Hmm.
You know, that's my opinion. I find that because we've been led to be such a fractured society, we have so many people with different varying opinions, different comprehension of what the situation is and should look like. We are left um, with no movement because we're all well. Let me rephrase that. We're left with minimal amount of movements because a lot of people that can create more greater impact are still also thinking about the structure behind it. Like, what are they? What is the gain and what is the loss? What does it look like? And quite frankly, sometimes it don't matter what it looks like. It matters what
What
your
it is.
actions, yeah, what it is, what you're putting forward. Um, I'm seeing a few things, and I feel like there's people out there just as much writing as there are people out there peacefully meditating in solidarity with people who are writing. So there's no contrast. There's a balanced contrast there, but there's no negative to being one or the other, in my opinion. We need both sides of the coin at this point. We definitely need both sides of the coin at this point.
100.
We
It's just necessary. It's not necessary evil. It's just a necessity because
it yeah,
it's gonna happen one way or another. Where if there's no riots, they're gonna take over on that side. If there's no peace, they're gonna take over on that side too.
correct,
Yeah.
correct, correct.
So
Yeah, man.
I do want to thank you for taking your time out for today. I know with everything going on, it's wild right now.
It is wild. It's funny enough because if you didn't send that reminder, man, I would have been because I'm literally lined up with so many other things. But I was kind of like, so I literally just put something on the burner just to make sure I can do this because again, missed that first appointment and I had this in my calendar, but again, it's like sometimes the phone's not next to me and it goes off, and I'm like, yeah, whatever that was.
That means you're strong with your presence of where you're at, which is never a bad thing.
Oh, I hope so.
So since I know your time is, you have a lot of stuff to do, I'll just get right to it. I'm gonna ask a couple questions on health, fitness, and wellness. One
Yeah.
question on life-changing moments, and then the last question will be about a gem that you would like to share to the next generation. So
Okay.
to get things started, how do you feel health, fitness, and wellness has affected your life, and where are you with your own journey on that?
How do I feel as it affected my life? It has greatly impacted my life. It has been the one of the leading structure in my guidance. You know, health, fitness, and wellness encompasses really the three factors. So mind, body, and spirit is my view on how I proceed through this life. Oftentimes we have to listen to one or the other, and then the aim is to put them in a uniform and keep them as a unit, and they all function together. So as far as um, health, without health, there is no other. So without putting that eating proper, being balanced in that structure of eating, there is no real other wellness. There's and even if you don't eat well or don't exercise well and you go into spirit, you're only still one facet of that. So for me, all of that is is a uniformed balance. It doesn't. There's no separation. But it's been a long journey. I I initially started. Well, I would like to say I started this right about it's pretty much the journey about end of senior year or around freshman to sophomore year in college, where it was probably around end of freshman year, where I just one moment I just decided, all right, well, if I fix this mind, I can get this and I can do this in the next level, and I'm good. Like I literally thought it was gonna take 1 year.
It'll be quick.
Got this. It's like I'm gonna cut off all my negativities, health, just go in there, eat well, and exercise. That to me was the at the end of 6, 7, 8 months ish. That's when the aha moment came. It wasn't about the year. It wasn't about the quick fix, the quick X. It literally was, hey, this is a progression, brother. This is a life. And it kind of made me a bit depressed, to be frank. It made me a bit imbalanced because, again, I was structured under the thought that, hey, man, put all this effort and energy in, I'm done, I'm golden.
That's it. I've conquered it. And what I've
Yep.
seen, even with my personal journey, is that until we go through it, it's like not really spoken about too much. Whereas, like, the continuous growth is something. Growth is going to be continuous, maybe with your mind, body, your spirit. That it doesn't stop. It's not like, okay, cool, I've hit this certain level of enlightenment, or now I've been able to overcome this one way of thinking or something that I was holding on to. No, it's just we've opened more doors, and I think that what you said there was powerful. Where even I've been through depressions, multiple depressions, where I'm just like upset because of getting that enlightenment and then realizing, oh wait, no, I just opened up a whole nother door where I need to delayer a lot more. And I'm like, oh my God, wait, I've been doing this wrong. So how were you able to overcome that depression?
I'm gonna. I wasn't exactly able to overcome it. I was able to struggle through those, but I
Mm,
think later on one thing got me to the understanding and not necessarily the ease of getting through. It was a phrase that I was reading through one of the deeper spiritual book, and it says, "Every step we take up the mountain only lengthens the mountain."
interesting.
So in so doing, that recognition that this has been an understanding and spirit and journey forever, and that is the structure designed, regardless of where you are in this journey, whether or not you are the beginning in terms of spirit, or you're beginning in terms of doing your first push-up, and you're beginning in doing an artistic creative, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like all of the best, the greatest, and so on and so forth, recognizes their own little idiosyncrasies, that they're not the best at X, and even when they did reach that pinnacle, they recognized there was more to come. So for me, getting to that point of quote unquote depression or misunderstanding of what life is was an aha moment. Don't get me wrong, I didn't know it to the fast that I know now, but back then it was just kind of like the fuck. It's as if I was now going. Then it's like I can't do anything right or I can't do enough because it doesn't matter what I do. there's so much. And at that point, I thought really there was so much internally that I needed to do.
Mm.
There was so much that was being brought up, and then recognizing that there was so many more issues or strength or weaknesses within the muscles or weaknesses of the mind or the spirit wasn't, it's like, I thought meditation meant sitting down and being quiet. I didn't realize meditation meant 20 years of, so,
You're expected to see a year.
right? Um, so in understanding that, it became harder and easier right at the same point, because the recognition in knowing that it's easier because you recognize that the foundation of this it is just you deciding to grow and keep growing. It became harder in recognizing that you decide to keep growing. And when you choose that, you cannot unchoose it. And that's the hardship. Because the moment you take a step to the next ladder or rung or stair, you cannot step backwards without pain. And it's within that pain that you start recognizing that I can't live in this first step. I have to continue doing the second step. And you make it through the second step, you go to the third, you still want to step back down again, and you recognize again, I have to go forward. And those are the moments in my career, my understanding that, wow, that pain, most people think, again, that pain is like some kind of hardship or internal. No, it's part of the process. It's not always about you having another thing you got to go through internally. No, it's about you're choosing to go and stay in this, stretching yourself. And when you stretch yourself enough to reach to the next pinnacle, it's going to be another stretch.
100%. And there's beauty in it. There's chaos in it, which allows for that growth that you mentioned. What I'm seeing too come up is that we take these leaps to grow, to elevate, to be in that next step, that next level. And then to your point, I feel like then we need to stabilize and understand, okay, cool, we're here. This is how we have to show up. And with that time, if we stay there for too long, that's when we're like, wait, hold up. I'm on this path of growth. I need to continue to do more. What I'm trying to do more and more now is like trying to see how to do more, but not where I'm exhausting the mind, the body, the spirit, but do it more collectively with the right people around. So with that being said, is like, what have you been able to do in which it's helped you be able to see the bigger picture, connect with like-minded individuals, and keep up growing from those next levels to make it a collective thing, if that made any sense?
It does. I'm going to touch on something you said about the chaos just before. Chaos, what you had mentioned about chaos is the mind telling yourself that you're not necessarily strong enough at this point. And within the chaos, it's not quite chaos. It is actually, there is a function of order. As you're saying, really, you're using it as a chaos and an order. But within the structure of the mind, the chaos is both your ego deciding that it can or cannot do something and telling you something, and both your body deciding whether or not you can or cannot do something and it's telling you something. And within that moment, you have to choose to live between the two and go right between the two and structurally say, all right, I'm capable. And just, it doesn't matter if you're physically capable or mentally capable or spiritually capable, just know you're capable.
Yeah.
And that's when the chaos itself dilutes itself. It will come back, but it will dilute itself. Yeah. As far as the bigger picture is concerned, I've done a few things, and in terms of you and I belong to the same group. One of the major action in my life was to recognize that solitude is phenomenally grand for a portion of your time. It's necessary. It is part of the act. It is part of the understanding. It's part of the creative ability to recognize that you need to sit alone, and then you need to bring information so that you can divide and input the information for yourself in an expressive way, however you choose to express it, however you choose to comprehend it, however you choose to delineate it, all of that. It's you. There comes a point in time when you needs a whole bunch of eyes, like other individuals that are not necessarily a whole bunch of yous as well. And so in so doing, I've joined groups, in particular, Mastermind in particular, Prior to this, I didn't call myself a group joiner, but there's a purpose and a reason behind what they do. We understand that men in particular, this group of set are not just the stereotypical view of manhood, but we're much more. There's a much more creative, much more passionate, and much more gentle, much more structure to the idea of men than is being toted, and that's been in the past been pushed onto us. So that, along with the creative and the community, is something that I recognize that was needed. I had a community, but I didn't have a community that was uniformed. It was more a fractured structure of hey, do this over here with these people, do this over here with this people, do this over here, and it's just kind of you get a little overwhelmed in the physical act of going and doing and going and doing. This unit brought together people of like-mindedness, like-minded understanding, and as much as we may not agree, because we're human beings, we may not agree on all structure of what we need to do. We're in the same resonant tone. We're in the same understanding, like minds. And so that's been a crazy understanding and a growth for me, because in my own silence, I've recognized that I'm good alone. But in joining a group, I've recognized that the strength in being alone needs to be addressed in a group, so that the group itself can understand they too can be better in groups. They too can be good as an individual, but strength in numbers, as the phrase goes. So for me, the bigger picture was finding a proper group, finding people that spoke the same language, spoke the same understanding, and moving that forward. And in terms, I've also created another group for myself, a smaller conglomerate of a meditation of men that we're aiming to kind of like sharpen that point, and that's for me is what is the growth for me, the balance of everything.
That was beautiful. You really touched upon so much there, where I understand it from a personal perspective of solitude. I come from karate, and that is a sport and practice that you do with other people. You are, depending on the belt and where you're at, you may be a leader where what the rest of the school does will affect you specifically because you're going to pay for it. That was me and a couple of my friends. So with Mastermind and how you mentioned, what I've been blessed to see is how there are so many leaders and how we're all understanding how to work as a community to be able to lead. And it's so interesting because we're only getting started with what we're doing. Like there's going to be a time, and it seems like it's going to be soon, that we all are going to be stepping up to the plate to make sure that we lead people forward. So thank you for sharing that. And to just segue into the next question, like I said, I don't want to take too much of your time. So look, with all that you said, and it doesn't have to be about fitness, wellness, it could be about anything in your life. What would be one moment in where you had that, like you had that choice where you knew it was chaos, you could stay the same, or you can grow, and you went straight, where you went from an old mindset to a new mindset and it improved your quality of life?
I think that came to me several times in my life in different iterations, just because when we grow, the other aspect of it has to grow as well. I can recall the very moment I decided that there are two choices in life, whether or not you can be an individual of goodness or an individual of lack of goodness. I wouldn't be negative or bad, just you choosing a less than portion of yourself. And I was literally around 13, and it just popped up out of bed, and I recognized that the aspect of life to me at that point seemed quite inferior and lacking, because my idea of what life was and what was shown to me was, you get up, you eat breakfast, you go to school. And at that point, I was actually working as well. And then you come from school, you do sports, and then on the weekends you go to work, and then you come back home, and it's like, this is the repetitive nature of it. And I was just floored by that. I was just like, there's no reason this should be that should be it. No matter how many goals people set for themselves, that was still the same thing. It was just a repeat and wash. And I realized that's not what I wanted.
It just didn't make sense from like an intuitive level for you.
Did not. So that has happened several times in several iterations as my growth has happened. So I would really lay claims to that being the structure throughout all of this.
No worries.
Probably call back. So yeah. So at that point, I had to literally that action, and sorry, and learn from each time it came. It was vastly different, but it was really the same thing. It's just like, is this it? Is this? And then you recognize the growth. The growth comes in each of the time you recognize what it is that you're doing and how you can grow from there. What your okay moment is. I'm sorry, not your okay moment, but your aha moment. Sorry, what was the second part to that question? As I was interrupted, I lost my train of thought.
No worries.
Um,
I think you answered it where it took you from an old mindset to a new mindset. So for you, what it seems like is that it stems from that first time when you were 13, where even if it's not like you're consciously saying, okay, cool. Remember when you were 13, where you always said you want to always test what's different. It just comes to see. It just seems like whenever you're having these moments of change, you remember that 13-year-old kid. And I think I'm saying that
yeah,
because for me, I was a young kid. I don't remember how old I was, but this was when I lived in New York. Kanye West album came out, Graduation, and the song I Wonder was playing. I'm sitting in the car. I'm just staring into the ceiling and listening to that song. I still listen to it to this day just to remind me. I just remember that there's something bigger that I'm here for. So whenever I'm in these spaces connecting with people and I see opportunity, there's something that just kind of clicks and fires. I'm like, wait, this makes sense. So I feel like that younger version of ourselves, that kid stuff that is always playing, is always like tied to us wanting to grow because that's something that the kid does is plays freely.
yeah, yeah. I would generally say that is that it does create that opportunity for you to grow within that moment of creativity and understanding. So yeah, I think to add to the secondary growth of just that moment. Wow, sorry.
No worries. We'll wrap. I'll ask you the next question after this, and then we'll wrap up. I got you.
let me because they're gonna call again. Let me just
Tell them
um,
I will keep you for like 4 minutes.
we're gonna have to edit that out. Right.
So,
Sorry, your question was.
I know you were going off on something. You probably lost train of thought. All good.
Oh, just as far as the next levels of steps from the 13-year-old me to the new mind. I think the new mind came when I decided to actually understand that the levels. I apologize.
No worries, man.
Should have known that was gonna happen. Putting things too closely, too tight together, huh? Sorry about
I do that shit, and
that.
I'm like, fuck. But let me. I know you're busy. I'll ask the last question here. Now, what is the one gem you would
Sorry,
like
good. Do
to
your thing.
share to the next generation? If there's one thing.
What is one thing I would like to surpass to the next generation? Um, Forget the rules of your parents, man. If there's one thing I've guided a lot of people in coming into grander adulthood, not necessarily adulthood, but I'd say grander adulthood. And the biggest recognition is that you are capable of creating your own rules. You see, we're imparted with rules from our parents and our parents' parents. And what we fail to recognize is that each one of those has still been a 20-year gap of time, a 20-year piece of information before So your grandparents were a minimum of 20 plus years before your parents. Your parents were about a minimum of 20 plus years before you. And each one of those rules apply to the timeline, apply to that timeline in particular. And what we've always done is saying, all right, well, our parents did it this way, so therefore it has to be done this way. And our parents go, well, it happened like this, and therefore in order for you to survive like I did, you have to do it like this. And that is not always true. And that limits the creative mind, that limits the creativity of any individual that chooses to be grander and to grow, because now you're structured into a past linear timeline. You're no longer in your own creative ability. You're into somebody else's creative or lack of creative wisdom in essence. And you got to imagine the time shifts so much so within the 20-year span of time. You're now getting information. Let's be real. You're getting information from 40 years. Because it's not the 20 years that just the parents, you're getting it from the grandparents as much. So within
have
that,
not been in this country, depending on your lineage.
Precisely. So given your location, given your place on the map, your globe, and so on and so forth, recognizing that piece of information is not quite factual. Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean it's all wrong. And it doesn't mean you tell your parents that you're all wrong. It just means that you have to recognize where and when that piece of information shall apply. And that's the hardship. The hardship is not in recognizing that your parents are somehow off, wrong, or misaligned or so on and so forth. They're not misaligned. They're aligned for the time period they're in. They're aligned for the structure and the information they received and from whom they received it. And now, in particular, where we are, where you can see the kids that were born in with iPhones versus the kids that are born prior iPhones. You know, it's just like kids that are born with iPhones literally have no need for arguments. Like
So hold
arguments are like, no, hold on, you're wrong about that. Hold on. Yeah, it was 5%. Like it's just like what? You know, like I mean, I'm probably like giving away a bit, but at the end of the day, like I like that structure of not knowing, arguing for a good solid week or 2 or 3. You know, just going back and forth. Yeah, just going back and forth, making up shit on your own, just like, yeah, it's this. And then all of a sudden, one day somebody finds the information and you're like, oh.
Got it. I mean, that beats a whole curve where now the knowledge, so on quote unquote knowledge or whatever information from whatever source they're getting it from comes from to give you that response. Yep. One thing I want to touch upon real quick. You mentioned when you were talking about our parents, our ancestors, you mentioned like their state of, you mentioned, what was it? How, what they did, what they needed to do to survive. And I feel like that's also a big thing. And sometimes it's not even trying to understand, but kind of understanding that the lens in which our parents may have seen things may have been from a scarcity mindset, abundance mindset. And we can only know kind of seeing the successes they may have had within that realm of space in which they're giving advice from for that given moment. So I just wanted to touch upon that the way that you framed it, saying that, you know, they were doing things and made rules to survive isn't always the best for thriving.
No, it isn't always. And again, that's where the understanding has to come in from. What position you're in, you can't judge the parental action. You have to give them leeway to they're growing just as much. They're the beings that still need to grow. And they've given you, you know, let's be real. Like say your grandparents, great grandparents gave you the root, your parents gave you the stalk, and now you're the flowers and the leaves, you know, let's be real about that. Or you're the fruit, you know? So without that, you know, without your grandparents being the seed, your parents busting through the ground and getting a foundation, you can't be a fruit, you know? So your life is going to be quote unquote, let's say fruit, it's going to be sweet. Hey, some people went through some bitter things to get you there. So that's the recognition.
I love it. And staying appreciative of it all. Well, I just want to say thank you once again. I know you got a busy day, Theo, so I appreciate you, your soul, your being. Bushman, thank you for your time.
Brother, thank you for the offer. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I wish you the best of luck with your book, your programs. And not only that, I wish it reaches a plethora of people, bro, a grand amount of people, so that this information can be widely utilized for people who can grow a little bit stronger and better. So
Yeah,
thank
man.
you for asking me to be a part of this.
It's a blessing because you're just wisdom, man. We've got to spend time in the woods as a family with Mastermind Connect. So you're a great human being, man. So once again, thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. You too. You are as well. Take care.